Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this third webinar of the European Network of Use-Based Demonstrators in a series of 3. 2 weeks ago, we heard about a Scilly Islands BVLOS project and Israeli use-based implementation plans, while last week we had more feedback provided about BVLOS and UAS sandbox projects in France, Germany, and Spain. Both webinars are now available online if you missed them. Today, we will complete this round of webinars by looking at lessons learned in implementing use-based in Finland, as well as Hamburg's urban air mobility projects. A few technical details before we proceed. This event is recorded and will be made available, as for the previous ones, in a few days after the event. Regarding rules of engagement, first, as an attendee to this event, we do not hear or see you, but you are really encouraged to contribute through the chat and Q&A functions. You should use the Q&A functions for asking questions and keep the chat function for comments, technical issues, or just to say hello and say from where you are coming from if you so wish. And finally, a feedback form will open in the browser from which we have launched this Zoom event. It normally opens 10 minutes after you join, and we would really very much appreciate if you could give us your feedback after the webinar. So I am Nicolas Eertmans, Policy Officer at the European Commission, and will be your moderator today. We will be joined live by Mr. Petri Mononen from Finland, Mrs. Franziska Biermann from the city of Hamburg, and Jan-Erik Putze, CEO of Dronik. Welcome to the 3 of you. Dr. Petri Mononen is a principal scientist at VTT, Finland's Scientific Research Center, and holds a PhD in Industrial Engineering and Management. He is the leader of the VTT UAV Excellence Node, consisting of about 40 VTT experts involved in UAV-related research, development, and innovation. He is currently coordinating 2 large-scale UAV research actions, namely AirMore and ROLO, on which we will know more later today. And for his earlier work on these ventures, he has been awarded the iMobility Award for Excellence in Intelligent Transport System Implementation Activities by the European Commission and iMobility Forum. Franziska Biermann is Head of Division Cluster Policy at the Ministry for Economy and Innovation at the Free and Hanseatic city of Hamburg. For more than 4 years, she is responsible for the subject of urban air mobility at the ministry level. Before, she studied economics and worked at the Hamburg Institute of International Economics as a junior researcher. Finally, our third speaker will be Jan-Erik Putze. Jan-Erik holds a degree in banking and a commercial pilot license. He is a passionate flight instructor and joined DFS, the German ATC provider, in the role of a consultant. From 2008 to 2013, he was responsible for the distribution, sales, and logistics of aeronautical publications. In 2014, he took on a new position as a company officer and head of operations in the DFS subsidiary Eisenschmidt, where he was later appointed managing director. Since 1st January 2019, Jan-Erik Putze acts as a chief executive officer at Dronik, a joint venture between DFS and Deutsche Telekom, responsible for the provision of drone-related services in Europe. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Petri Mononen, who will give us the first presentation of today. Over to you, Petri.
Now I was able to unmute finally. So here goes. So, Nicolas, Thanks a lot for the kind presentation. I can save some time by not needing to introduce myself. For the mentioned projects, I might say only add one detail. So I may not be, since there are many elements to these projects, I may not be the specific expert on use space implementation. We have the civil aviation authorities and ANSPs to do that job, but anyways, I can represent the projects quite nicely. And my presentation is titled Lessons Learned in Implementing U-Space in Finland. The content of my presentations is as follows. So I will give just a quick glimpse into the UAV research and demonstrator landscape in Finland, and then looking into AirMore first lessons, and following into DROLO lessons learned and lessons to be learned, and I'll be presenting the lessons along the way during the presentation. And my specific goal is maybe show challenges and learnings for other players that might be starting with U-Space from scratch, because that is what we are basically doing in DROLO. Finland as the research environment, just a couple of details. So we are a country in the far edge of Europe in the north, and a couple of points there. So in addition to the other challenging things in UAV implementation and U-Space implementation, we are working with Arctic weathers on top of that. And I'm pointing out one of the airports in Finland, Oulu, namely the second busiest airport in Finland, and then also an international airport, which comes in later in my presentation as a focal point. So generally, Finland is subscribing to the European Commission and European strategies within the UAV sector, and as a country quite actively contributing to the development and research in the UAV related issues. But as a relatively small country, we in addition to what we do nationally, we are heavily leaning on any other UAV development globally. Firstly, of course, in Europe, but all across the globe eventually. So, as a background, up to now there are no large-scale implementations or demonstrations of U-Space or UTM systems within Finland. As for the research, the Finnish businesses, academia, research and technology organizations, administration, cities are involved in several high-profile projects in RDI. So on the European and international level, we are the AirMore project, the Horizon 2020 project is led from Finland basically. I'll be giving a few words on this later, and there are several others in the European funding frameworks, like Flying Forward 2020, 5G drones, Gulf of Finland projects, and others. And in the national scheme, also many projects. The one I'm leading is DROLO, funded by Business Finland, but there are others funded by Academia Finland and also other funders. And the focus areas in these projects, as you could imagine, covers pretty much everything from drone ecosystems, 5G connectivity, crossover operability, eVTOLs, naturally logistics, U-Space implementation, as we are about to find out, ground infrastructure, autonomy, propulsion technologies, business models, and education. So quite a lot of coverage, of course, as is needed. And now delving into one of the example projects, namely AirMore, which along with other initiatives is expanding the mobility into the third dimension, the airspace. We have two major angles in AirMore project. So one of them is our claim that cities will have a major role in UAM, not a decisive role maybe, but they will need to have a say in many things, where to fly, where not to fly, to get access to the city. So UAM standing for urban air mobility, of course. And the second angle that we have is focusing on use cases with emergency and medical services for tourism mainly. So these services are more time critical than cost critical, and they are widely accepted by the policymakers and by the public alike. So in terms of manned eVTOL services. And they are our use cases are then paving way for other mobility scenarios that involve these devices. And we are a Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Action running for 3 years, started half a year ago now. And we are 13 partners from 6 countries and have a total funding of 6 million euros. And as a map image, our consortium, so representing the specific aviation expertise, of course, we have the Swedish CAA and Trafikverket there. But other than that, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Germany, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands are our partnership countries, and we will be testing during the test flights in Helsinki, Stavanger, and Nordhessen, also simulations in Stockholm and Luxembourg and elsewhere. So the project itself has many elements of research in it, naturally, air and ground safety, security issues, regulations, and user acceptance, and many facets of the sustainability, like ecological, economic, societal sustainability. But most importantly, we'll be validating our findings with live validation tests for unmanned and manned eVTOL emergency and medical services. Quite nicely globally connected as well. So our external advisory board has members from Juida, Japan, Dubai Future Foundation, United Arab Emirates, NASA from USA, and many of the European establishment like EUROCONTROL, EASA, 8GIG, Urban Mobility, European Investment Bank, and the City Initiative on UAV issues. Also the coordinator for connected CESAR joint undertaking project. And we cooperate quite heavily with our sibling projects and are in the process of getting 10 replicator cities and regions in addition to the other research collaboration. The main output from this project, and now getting more close to the first lessons, so what we will be producing mainly in the ERMOR project is a toolbox for aviation urban authorities containing a UAM guidebook for cities and other stakeholders. We are also producing an UAM geographical information system planning tool for urban planners, and we are devising a UAM training program, including webinars and masterclasses. So in ERMOR, there's no use-based implementation or UTM as such, because we move on a more ad hoc test flight scenarios, but there are still some connected findings relating to use-based implementation. And this is the format I present our main lessons. By the way, the green color. So the one I'd like to point out here is the city and region involvement, which is integrally needed in any such activity. So what we come across in ERMOR, so there are huge differences in understanding and knowledge levels in the cities and regions, also on aspirations, what the imagined end states of these systems are, and generally the view on the possibilities and limitations of UAV and the systems connected to those. So that's really notable, and I guess well known, but it comes prominently up in our findings. And also there's a very setup of relevant decision-making bodies. So it might be a city, it might be a group of cities, it might be a region, it might be a ministry that has the needed say or access granting ability for being able to do these things. And for that reason, we are now coordinating directly to the relevant EASA working group on the AMC guidance material, for example. Next, jumping on into the actual use-based demonstrator. So this business development project, we are running 2 years with a 8 million euro budget with 11 partners and surrounding ecosystems, and it's a use-based demonstrator, in addition to other technology and concept development topics. And we aim to investigate and demonstrate the use-based integration and also the interplay with ATM-controlled airspace, and there are several technological aspects that I won't be going into deep now. And we would like to keep linked to the European regulatory development, so that this use-based service can be piloted successfully. This is our test site, and here comes the FO, the Oulu airport into play that I mentioned earlier. So you can see the city of Oulu there, having an inhabited island, an archipelago in the sea. In front of it, we have the EFO airport. We have a busy harbor. We also have a lively city center in our test area, a city of 200,000 and a regional hub for a big chunk of Finland. In fact, the city of Oulu is. We have the technology campus where VTT is located, and also the university, and finally we have the Nokia Rusko 5G factory or production plant and a test site as well. And I happen to live inside the board of the airspaces on the ground. So in order to be able to first crawl, then walk, run, and finally hopefully fly, this is where we are then at, and you can see that we are just beginning our journey. So I highlighted the mostly use-based or UTM related elements with gray background here, so aiming for a pre-commercial use-based implementation UTM later this year in fact, and hopefully going for commercial use-based later. And there are many factors there, and some lessons also learned, and many to be learned. So of course the transition to commercial operations is somewhat banking on the estimated EU legislation schedule holding up. And the other lesson or notion, should I say, is that we see there's a lot on the use-based service providers plate. So thinking of inter-USB data exchange, is CIS going to be a valid integration point, and how much inter-USB traffic there's actually going to be. We also considering methods to convey the accurate and up-to-date UAV location data from use-based to ATM actors in the interplay part, and also thinking of handover operability between USSPs in addition to country borders, but just between USSPs. And there seems to be a lot of yet undefined interfaces and options there on the systems. Not going through the work package structure. On the left you can see our companies, on the right you can see our public research organization, VTTs in a leading role here. And I've highlighted the work packages that mostly connect to use-based development. So the business model work package 2, of course, relevant, and the SORA and SAFE classes definition happening in work package 3, but the most relevant one is work package 8, system setup, operation, and piloting, where the use-based system is going to be implemented. And lessons learned on this background, starting from the business model considerations early on in the game, but still, as I understand or assume that many companies, we are concerned about the pricing and commercial viability of the services, especially in the early days when the volumes are going to be lower. For example, for city last mile applications with use-based capabilities, and having the reasonably high demands from a specific category to beyond visual line of sight operations, and fully acknowledging that safety needs to be first, yes, but how much business or commercial viability is left on top of that. In the system setup work package, considering how to define use-based areas and finding out that public procurement for these pre-commercial deployments is a delicate task. For example, considering the GDPR, if you are leaving the door open for non-EU vendors, practically they will need to have a unit in Europe to avoid extra costs for the hosting arrangements. Just showing a glimpse of the mentioned ecosystem there. So the dartboard in the middle is our current consortium. On the left, you can see the enablers, some of the enabling partners to our ecosystem, and on the right you can see where we are moving on from the starting point to expand the ecosystem for future endeavors within Finland and elsewhere also. So for Trello, our use case setup is as presented here. So we have defined 11 use cases. Not all of them are active in this innovation stage. The most relevant for use space is use space 7 there in the middle. But our thinking and sort of model here is that most or all many of those use cases will be needing several enabling layers. Some of them will be needing them all, and the enabling layers are listed on the bottom. So starting from the ground up, so to speak, city area, you need access to their airport environment in terms of the controlled airspace considerations. We need a CIS system, and we need the use space system, whoever is running it. In this project, we also have a high interest in 5G connectivity issues, and we also need a UAV operational fleet management platform, and at the same time a viable ecosystem and business models and multi-purpose drone usage. And coming back to the earlier lesson, again, the city and region involvement rather crucial here, and we are now in active negotiations with Finnish FinTraffic ANS, which is the ANS provider here in Finland, also Traficom, CAA, and the city who might be taking the first responsibility in commissioning the UTM system. I'm keeping a good time here, I see. So this figure maybe illustrates more visually the challenge with the unmanned aviation traffic management and controlled airspace challenges. So we have a reasonably busy airport there. Also acknowledging that we are not there yet, but in the end state, when we are operating close to, and if we are operating close to an airport, the UAV needs to be really trustworthy, airworthy, fully redundant. A rogue UAV in the vicinity of an active airport is just not going to be allowed, and that's quite clear to everybody. But for that purpose, we have FinTraffic, ANS, Traficom, also the airport owner Finavia, working closely together, and that is needed. As I mentioned, the CA and ANS need to be there involved. So in Finland, for us, that's Traficom as the CAA and FinTraffic ANS as the future CIS operator and also partner within the Trello consortium. So here my quick run through what we are wrestling with here in Finland. I assume that my presentation, hopefully at least, has been quite self-explanatory, considering the early stages that we are here in Finland with these issues, that what we might learn or wish to learn from others. So it's basically everything. Who's more advanced, we can take some lessons on board and maybe avoid reinventing the wheel in some places. So that's our wish, and we are welcoming any contact and cooperations in either of these projects, for example, or company to company, admin to us, or whatever way is more feasible. And on the other side of the coin, where we think we might be able to help others, well, some months from now, perhaps we have our lessons more sort of concrete and more advanced, and naturally we might be another resource that has fresh in their memory the things that the checklists that need to be covered when doing this kind of a demonstrator of use space. And with that, with seconds to spare according to my timer, I conclude my presentation, and thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present in this nice webinar series. Over to you, Niklas.
Thank you very much, Petri, for indeed sticking exactly to the time you were allocated. I see that we already have a few questions in the Q&A. We propose not to address them now, but to open the floor for Q&A sessions after the 3 presentations. So please continue to submit your questions through the Q&A, and at the end of the presentations, we will open the floor. So without further ado, I think the next in line is sorry. Franziska, yes, just double check your first name. So Franziska from Hamburg, who will present us the UAM project in Hamburg. Over to you, Franziska.
Thank you, Nicola. Yes, I hope that you can now, in a few seconds, see my screen. Excuse me, can you see my screen?
I confirm we see your screen, Franziska.
Okay, well. Thank you. Yes, my name is Franziska Biermann. I'm from the Ministry for Economy and Innovation at the Free and Hanseatic City of Hamburg. 10 days ago, the Federal Ministry for Transport and Digital Infrastructure in Germany announced the first German use-based living lab to be implemented in Hamburg. And so today our presentation will have 2 parts. The first part is me presenting the Hamburg UAM setting and the lessons learned, or the lessons we have learned from the projects we have so far. And then the second part is done by Jan-Erik Putze from Dronic, who will be operating the use-based living lab here in Hamburg. So what drives us in Hamburg? We deal with the topic of urban air mobility for more than 4 years now, and we see that there are new economic perspectives, that there are new industrial perspectives, and of course, new mobility perspectives, and that these perspectives are all in urban area that is more urban than any air traffic before. There you had planes flying thousands of meters above your head, and then they start landing or arriving and departing at the airport. But drone traffic is above your head, to say it literally. So this is quite a new perspective, and this is quite a new challenge for the cities, of course. And in 2016, we started to collect the players we have in Hamburg by shaping a new network, our drone network Windrove, that was funded then by the Federal Ministry for Education and Research. And in 2018, Hamburg decided as the second city in Europe to join the European initiative EIP SCC UAM. Now it has a shorter abbreviation, that is UIC2. It is called the UAM Initiative Cities and Communities. And today, around 42 cities are member of that initiative, all around Europe. So it's a big network, and we can really learn from each other. In 2019, the Federal Ministry for Transport and Digital Infrastructure launched a big call for projects in Germany. And in Hamburg, we have 3 projects of them. One is called Falke, that is drone detection and control around airports. The other one is UDVEO, that is the designation of a traffic management for use space in Hamburg. And the third one is Medifly Hamburg, that is kind of a first application with a medical background. It's transporting medical goods and tissue samples by drone. And for us, as a city, we see that UAM is an overall urban issue. It's privacy, it's noise, it's something that is new to the people, and we as a city are the ones to implement or to create the public participation and public acceptance. And yes, our urban view on that topic is that we need a legal framework that is now done with the use-based legislation, because without that we would see no economic or mobility perspective for cities. And yes, we say that over the cloud, freedom must be borderless, but above cities, we need some kind of control. So yes, we see that we have a if we think of capacity, the capacity is limited. For example, in Hamburg, you have 120,000 packages delivered to private households per day, and I think that is quite a lot to imagine that these packages would be delivered by drones. 120,000 per day. That's quite a lot, I think. And so this capacity is and must be limited by legal framework. Is of course limited also by the technology, by the infrastructure, by the costs, and yes, last but not least, the social acceptance. And this acceptance is created by balancing the public and private interests. And we are quite sure that we at the city levels are the level, the governance level that has to create this acceptance and in a legally binding way. And to create that acceptance, we see that projects with a medical focus are quite the first to be implemented to get that acceptance. Since we think, we know that all of the European drone cities in that network of the UIC2 have a very similar view on that topic, and that cities should have a decisive role. We launched a manifesto last December at the Amsterdam Drone Week, to state that cities should and must be heard in the regulatory process. Because UIM offers new opportunities, but also new tasks for us. And we at the cities, as I mentioned before, are the ones to get or to balance the different interests, and especially the one from the people living in the city. And we think that cities should have a decisive role for allowing the operation of UIM services, of establishing to what extent use-based services are conducted within their territory. That's a question of capacity, of course. Where the UIM use-based flight operations are permitted, and if you think of recreational spaces or something like that. Where takeoff and landing sizes are to be built, because you know that public ground is a scarce resource. And of course, we are the ones for prosecution of infringements. So we see that cities or the regional level should have this decisive role. And yes, as I said that we launched this manifesto last year, we now work collaboratively on a multi-level governance level to ensure that that we have a right the first time approach. So we do it step by step with different levels: the national level, the European level, but also the regional and the city level. And so after launching this manifesto last year, which is now signed by over 28 cities now. We also see an outcome, because the use-based regulation is referring to our to what we proposed, and there's an Article 18F within that use-based regulation stating that there should be a mechanism for the competent authority at the national state level to collaborate with the local level. And yes, this is our main lessons learned, that we as a cities should have a decisive role, that we should play an active part. And now when it comes to implementing use spaces, we already have some projects in Hamburg creating that setting for the use spaces, where you need, of course, technical requirements, and you need legal requirements. I think, yeah, Jan-Erik will maybe tell you more about the technical aspects in the second part. And we have 2 projects in Hamburg that deal with that topic. One is called UDVEO. I already mentioned that. It's about a use-based system in urban areas from the very, very regulative view on that topic. So how to deal with all the different aspects. And the second one goes more to the city level when, yeah, balancing and creating this public acceptance that what are the operational requirements to establish a use space within a city. This is the project USTRAT. And with that, I hand over to Jan-Erik for the use space living lab in Hamburg.
Thank you very much, Franziska. And indeed, I'm sure that we will have more details on the use space implementation in Hamburg with the next and already last presentation of today by Jan-Erik Bötzer. And I would like to remind you all that you can indeed keep asking your questions in the Q&A sessions. We will, in the Q&A section, we will address them later on after the presentation. Jan-Erik, over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. A warm welcome to all of you attending the webinar from EUROCONTROL. And before I start, I would really like to thank you to Nicolas and Musia for the for everything to make this webinar possible. So thank you very much. Yeah, and what would you see from me is I would like to talk about use space a little bit and what we think, what we can do already with use space and what our solutions for this will be. First of all, I would talk a little bit about Dronic, what we are. Dronic is, as Nicolas already said, a spin-off from Deutsche Telekom and Deutsche Flugsicherung. It started out of a project, R&D project called Connected Drones. And since that was very successful, Dronic was founded in 2019, sorry. And we started with our first cellular UTM on the market in 2020. And this is actually now what we are here for. DFS Dronic headquarters, we are located in Frankfurt. And our team combines the knowledge of telecommunication, air traffic, and general aviation. And I think this set of know-how in the company is pretty unique. And so we are actually the right partner for providing use space and other services around drones within Germany and of course within the European Union. And our goal, as Dronic's goal, is actually to enable unmanned aviation traffic, especially BVLOS. Using the cellular UTM and visualize all the drones activities, so visualize, let's say, unmanned and manned aviation in one ecosystem and safely integrate the UAS traffic, or actually the UAS partner into the existing aviation environment. Not more, this is actually what we want, and this is actually a lot of work what we have in front of us. And how do we do that? I want to show you a very, very, let's say, quick video, approximately a minute, that displays or explains a little bit what we think, what UTM should be. What we see today is, and this is why I'm very happy with EUROCONTROL and the EASA, that we get this very mixed carpet, what we call, with different colors and different regulations. What we have still today, even if we have regulations, because some countries take some more time, let's say, to really adapt everything at the same time, but it's very difficult to fly, let's say, over borders with drones. It's more or less not possible currently. And therefore, we are very happy that that the picture will look like this in the near future, that we have, let's say, one regulation, hopefully in all Europe, makes drone fly very, let's say, possible, even across borders. And this is actually what we need to get the drones more or less in the air, and to establish a, let's say, solid environment even for the industry to invent and invest, of course, also in that ecosystem. This is what we need, and we as Stronic are very happy that that the European, let's say, everyone in Europe is, let's say, working on that program to make that happen. What is our UTM? Now it comes to this 52 seconds. Enjoy.
3, 2, 1, liftoff. Our technology turns a toy into a tool. One that integrates itself, that moves freely because it's controlled by a central system. Constantly connected, at every place, from every location. It collects valuable data, detects dangers, prioritizes the safety of others. Our technology takes digitization into the third dimension. Welcome to the future.
Yeah, as you see, we start up with very, let's say, small icons of use spaces, and maybe in the end, it's only just one space, what we call use space. But this is, I think, for the government or also for the EU to decide. But what we are now talking about a little bit about Hamburg, and what my colleague said before, we're happy to get, let's say, appointed by the Ministry of Infrastructure to design a use space sandbox in Hamburg, and not only talking about it, but really showing what it is. And to give you a quick outline, Franziska said that before, that drones, I think lots of people are scared about drones. They're making videos and pictures, maybe posted in the internet and make it available for everyone. So the public is actually, they don't really like drones because they maybe don't know what drones can all do. So it's also on us to explain to everyone that drones are not only there to take private pictures and put them in the internet. Drones are becoming a tool. And this is what we want to, let's say, to show in Hamburg, that this is possible, that we can even in that very difficult environment in Hamburg. I mean, we have marine, we have ships, we have helicopters, we have normal manned aviation, we have sport pilots, we have almost everything, and helicopters, lots of helicopters operating in Hamburg. And now we want even to insert one more traffic, which is a drone. And this is something what we want to show in Hamburg. And it's not only talking about something, we really want to show that it works. And we want to show with our existing toolbox, what we currently have, how we can design use space. Well, actually call it a little bit different, how we can design a space or an airspace where drones can safely operate and coexist with manned aviation traffic. And this is something we want really to show. We also have a live demonstration for 2 weeks in the end, where we really show that this really works already. And maybe to give the ministry, together with the partners in Hamburg, an idea how they can really maybe design that new airspace where drones can really fly together with manned aviation. And this is something what we want to show. What is that, what we do in Hamburg? Yeah, we want actually to show that this ecosystem is possible, as described in the regulation. We started in May already, and the project ends in November 2021. So we only have 7 months, to be honest, to show what we have. And so we use our own UTM. We work together with the DFS as the role as CIS, Andronic as the USSP, and we have 2 associated partners who are now operating drones in that use space. So we really are doing that and show that this really works. And even in these 2 weeks, everyone who's interested can apply and contact us and say, yeah, we also want to fly and see how that works. And the crucial part for us is that we have to ensure over that period of time that we are able to see all drone operations within that area. And this is actually also pretty unique. So we use our technology. We put up antennas where we can identify drones. We use the that's why we call it cellular UTM, because it's more or less reluctant on mobile technology. So the drones, they can send their position via FLAM, via ADSB, even with the transponder code, or actually using our own hook-on device, what we call, to transmit their position. So whenever a drone wants to operate here, it has to use one of these existing technologies, and we are able then to display that traffic in our UTM. That we call that data fusion, so we can really integrate ATM world with UTM world and make thereof one vision. So you can really see on one screen a UTM that's made drone traffic and manned traffic on one screen. And also for the ANSP, it's also something new, because normally whatever is flying in uncontrolled airspace, it's for ATC just blind, because they have no radar coverage. And this blind spot, we try to make it lighter from day to day. So whenever we have more antennas up, we can really see more traffic in very, very low airspace using that cellular UTM technology. And this is something pretty unique, and we want to show that this really works. And as I said before, you have to have our software, and then you can really fly within that area. And once we are done with that project in November, hopefully we have succeeded these 2 weeks of test flights without any incidents. And then we have the idea, and that's also part of that project, to give an outline, what we call it Luftraum U, or U airspace. What can it look like, and what kind of what kind of rules should you impose to set it up? Because this is currently, from my perspective, pretty unclear, and this is something what we want then to show and demonstrate what we think is possible. So much for Hamburg. So whoever is interested is welcome to go. We will let's say outline what we've done in Hamburg on a just launch site on our website, so we can see what really happens. And this is actually day by day updated, so that you really can see what we are doing there. And in the end, of course, there's a presentation, and at the ETS World Congress, hopefully we can also demonstrate. It's also in Hamburg, so we can really demonstrate that that Germany really has something to offer, not only to Germany, also maybe to the rest of the EU. And for our perspective, it's unclear. We don't want to do something only for Germany. This should be open. It has to be let's say, an open interface possibility that this can interact with all other ANSPs, or that the drones, let's say, use one standard. No matter where they fly, they are visible. And this is something where we think we can really ensure air safety, because if you're visible, and if all traffic is visible, we can implement rules within the drone technology itself, or even using other technology that we will not have any accidents while drones will collide against each other. Okay, so this is about Hamburg. I mean, since we all know what we are talking about here, I guess, go very quick over the 4 mandatory services as USSP: network identification, geo-awareness, UAS flight service, and traffic information service. And then we have the, let's say, not the volunteer services, weather and conformance monitoring. This is something which we as a USSP have to offer that service to our customers. How does it look like? It all is around our, we call it flight view. So if you have a look, you see more or less, this is the view you can see if you use our UTM. And it exists out of the network identification service on the left. So you know what the drone is, you have a unique identification code, you have everything, what you need to identify that drone. Remotely or network-based, whatever, it doesn't matter, we can display everything in that system. Geo-awareness service, of course, we have to display geographical zones, we have to display no-fly zones and any other constraint services. That's what we need. Then we have the flight authorization. So whenever you fly, we have to issue a flight authorization. We have to issue a certain code. We have to say, okay, this airspace is now free for you. You can go ahead. This is something which we can also use now. And of course, traffic information. We have a real-time display of manned and unmanned aviation together on one screen. And we can also give traffic information. We can also, we will do not do that, of course, via communication. It's just displayed into the system. So just summing that up a little bit. So we talk about now network identification service, and I just want to outline what we actually do. And if you take a look about the geographical position of the UAS, we use definitely height above the sea. So that is also something very good known in the manned aviation. They make that very easy. That it's you can also do that biometrically or on based on baro if that's possible. So that's actually whatever you would like to see. We make drones invisible, and this is something where we use you have to use the drones. General public now has to have the right to, if you send your ID to, let's say, collect that data. And of course, the information you can collect via the broadcast. It is general public is not allowed to see everything, definitely, because you can only see the call sign of that drone and that's it. So you see it's a drone. And on the other side, police, other use-based users, ANSPs and competent authorities, they get, of course, special permissions to see more information. They can even have access to our UTM to get some more information about the drone operator, or actually the drone pilot and the drone, of course. So this information is all combined in that network identification service. It's even via Bluetooth or via network. We don't care, but we would prefer a network because it has a bigger advantage and, of course, a better reach than Bluetooth. How does it look like? I showed you the picture before. So let's see, you have the traffic over there. You can click on it and you get some more information using the UTM, of course. And only if you are a UTM user, then you see that information. And once you are let's say, a competent authority or police or something else, of course, you get then the complete information about that drone. For the public, for example, we have a drone. It's called What's That Drone? It's an app. We will also, let's say, promote this within Hamburg. You can really just open the app, point it in the air, and whatever we see, you get display. I think there are some apps already out there where you can just point it in the air, and then you see the identification code and everything of manned aviation. Now we have the same for drones also. So you get that information displayed on a live video, like on the left, or using a basic card on the right, and this will then be displayed on your smartphone. And of course, dependent of your information, dependent on your job. If you're just public, you only get the call sign, and once you are police or other public users and non-public users, then definitely you get some more information. So this is our solution. We talk about network identification service and what we think is necessary and how we display that. Talking about geo-awareness, of course, we have to display geographical zones. We have to do that dynamically. And of course, it has to be up to date all the time. This is something very important and crucial for us. We use I think over 50 different map layers. You can really select which kind of layers you want to see in the UTM system. So if you only want to see police stations, for example, this one over here, then you only see police stations. If you want to see nature areas, of course, then you're not allowed to fly anymore because everything's nature area somehow. But anyway, you can really select the different layers you want to see in that system, and then it will be displayed. Whatever you selected on the left will be then displayed in the UTM. So you can see the industrial areas, streets, and everything what you have to see. And of course, you get then the description of no-fly zones. If there's a no-fly zone, you can click on it, and then you get some more information, even as a pilot, what that no-fly zone is, if it's temporarily or mandatory, or if it's just stationary and there's no change. You could really see that information into the UTM system. And then again, the flight authorization system I was just talking about. What we think is very important, I think, is a force point, notify the operator and indicate deviation thresholds. That means whenever you deviate from your planned track or your planned mission, you get some information. Our current threshold is 50 meters. So if you stay within that area, everything is green. Once you come out of this 50 meters, and we have the next threshold is 150 meters, and we call it yellow. And once you are beyond 150 meters, getting red and really indicates that you are now not following your path anymore. And this is also standard within our system. The other things are just something you have to do. You have to use a unique authorization number for each flight and insert that. This is all covered within our UTM system. This is just how it looks like. We also, as you can see here on the very bottom, you can see there's a drone here and there are some other drones. So if you want to fly now, you get the information there. Be careful, some other traffic is already here. So you have to delay your flight, or so you cannot start right now because there's someone already flying in that area. And we cannot allow that flight to happen. That also is something we have to do, and we have to inform the operator that this is currently not possible. This is also part about the flight authorization service. And of course, if wanted, we can also use weather information. I think weather is a very difficult matter. Dependent on your operation, you need different kinds of weather. Once you operate within cities and high towers, I think concerning turbulences, you definitely need some more precise weather, even between towers. Otherwise, you cannot really see that you have some, let's say, turbulence expected. We offer that as a basic service anyway. If that's enough, that has to be decided by the operator, and of course we can enhance that to other weather information who wants to be displayed. We use DVD weather and NOAA weather, so we can display that worldwide. Traffic information, I was just mentioning. Of course, it's live. It is a combination of manned and unmanned, and it's also what's also pretty unique, and thanks to DFS, it is we call it data fusion. So let's say you have 3 aircrafts. They're using an ADS-B transponder, and they also have FLAM. So you have out of these 3 traffics, 6 indications where traffic is. 3, of course, FLAM, and 3 ADS-B or Mode S, whatever. The DFS merged that to 1 position. So we really get only 1 position per aircraft. And this is also, I think, pretty unique. I haven't seen something similar like that in the EU ANSP world. So this is actually very good because you only see 1 traffic and you can be really dependent on that traffic in that display. How does it look like? We have various different views. You can use a black screen behind, you can use a normal map screen. You can also use the ANSP view, so an air traffic controller view, whatever you like. You can see drone traffic and manned aviation traffic with speed, direction, altitude, and call sign once you're using the UTM. And also, coming back one more, you can see this red thing over here. So you see 2 circles. This is, let's say, the radius, what we do, or let's say, it's a safety margin, we say. So if another drone comes closer to that and interferes that area, then we give the information to the drone operator, traffic, and then he has to, let's say, mitigate that. We're not mitigating, we're just displaying that there's traffic in his area and he has to do something to avoid hitting that traffic currently. And in future, I think once we have more intelligence into drones, I think they can really avoid these traffics, and we don't have any problems with traffic collisions between drones, of course. We don't display that or warn, let's say, manned aviation to manned aviation. We only warn drones to drones and drones to manned aviation. This is when we get that information up, because otherwise we don't have any connections to the manned aviation so far, because it's only for drones. Yeah, I think this is what we think the UTM service is all about. Just to give you some numbers to think, because whenever I talk to people saying, yeah, drones, I don't know, I don't think they will come. I think, yeah, it's a hype. They will disappear. Well, I don't think so, because I just have some numbers from Germany I would like to share with you. You know what an AOC is? An AOC is an air operator certificate. So like Lufthansa, KLM, Air France. We have 111 in Germany. So these are all the AOCs. Of course, Lufthansa, they have hundreds of aircrafts behind, that's for sure. But we have only 111 AOC holders in Germany. So how many registered drone operators do we have in Germany? And take in mind that they had to register starting January 2021. So it's almost 6 months from now. It's very sad that you're not able to answer currently, because I would really like to see what you think, how many drone operators we have. But I say we have 257,192 drone operators in Germany within months. And just using these two numbers, and these numbers are from the German LBA, from the website, you can easily access that. It's for everyone possible to check if that's correct. But that's the truth. And if you deduct maybe 100,000 model list, because they also had to register, then still we have 157,000 drone operators in Germany. Of course, they do not all fly BVLOS. Most of them fly, of course, VLOS, but they are flying and they are in the air. And that's why I think we definitely have to do something to integrate these the new traffic into the existing environment. And that's why we think we should really focus on getting our job done to do that, and of course to do that safely. Yeah, future aviation operations. Yes to drones. That's what we like to say. And thank you very much for your time and for listening to me. And yeah, I'd like to get in touch and contact, of course, if someone is interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jan-Erik. Very impressive numbers there. Yeah, maybe it's not only hype after all. Maybe we are working on real topic, real subjects that needs to be addressed indeed. So if you have more questions, please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A session. We have received a number already, and Petri has been very diligent in answering a number of them in writing. But I will go back maybe to one of the written questions that Petri has already answered in the Q&A sessions. But maybe that I would like to Petri to come back and maybe address it verbally. So Petri, there was a question asking what, in your opinion, was the biggest obstacles for the deployment of UTM in general in Finland, EU, or in Oulu in particular. So I know you provided already an answer in the chat. Maybe if you could develop.
Based on that, yes. Well, the thing that I wrote there pretty much is my sentiment on it. So I do feel that systems like what Jan-Erik presented will sort of obey the set requirements that are there for the UTM systems, and the technological obstacles will be cleared sooner or later. And the real question is then not sort of an air space management issue, but whether there's commercial viability for those services in different, for example, in more specially populated areas. Of course, in metropolitan areas, this is not maybe such a challenge. There are other challenges like population densities there that to tackle. But in any case, for less sort of active areas, well, I think if the means for living are there, they should be there. But this might be a concern for example, cities the size of Oulu in the future, if that's what you looked after.
Yeah, thank you, Petri. So maybe to switch to the case of Hamburg. In your presentation, Franziska, you explained the role of the city in policing the airspace. But I think Hamburg is also both a city and a state. So maybe if you could explain a bit the status of Hamburg in that context, and what are your real competence in terms of airspace policing, and your relationship with the German civil aviation authorities.
Yeah, thank you. So since Hamburg is a city-state, we have, let's say, our own civil aviation authority that is part of our ministry as well. So you have 18 civil aviation, regional civil aviation authorities in Germany, and the city-states have their own, and then the other states like Bavaria, they have 2 or sometimes 1. And yes, of course, since you have these civil aviation authorities, you have a lot more competence on the regulatory issues than other cities that do not have their civil aviation authority. And I think this link between our part of the ministry and the civil aviation authority has been quite fruitful in a way, because we can learn from each other. We know how regulation works, what aspects need to be taken care of, and since we also have a regulatory issue within our UIC2 network on the European level, where we have the regulation task force led by Hamburg, and where we are invited to contribute to the guidance material of the use-based regulation, we have a higher knowledge than let's say normal cities, since we have the civil aviation authority within our ministry.
Thanks, interesting. You mentioned the UIC2 community. I guess that there you are amongst probably the very few, if not the only city having its own Ministry of Transport or Civil Aviation Authority. So do you see that kind of challenge very different for other cities?
Yes, I think there is. There are quite a big difference between the cities, but all of them agree that cities should play a role, because it's the urban airspace in the end. And so I think it's also one aspect of this network that we learn from each other, and maybe in this case they can learn from the Hamburg position.
Yeah, thank you, certainly. And that's also the purpose of this network here, of course, is to share experience. Maybe I will try to correct one thing before we go on. I forgot to actually introduce the European Network of Use-Based Demonstrators, which is not only EUROCONTROL, but it's actually supported by the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, the European Commission, and the CESAR joint undertaking. So all 4 organizations actually support this use-based network of demonstrators. So it's not only EUROCONTROL, even though EUROCONTROL kindly offered the logistic support to organize those webinars. I will maybe go to Jan-Erik for the next questions. There were a few questions on the Q&A dialogue there about the surveillance technologies that you used for both manned traffic and the unmanned traffic. I think there were references to ADSB and FLARM. So how did you integrate both the unmanned traffic and the manned traffic into the system? And maybe if I can ask a personal question, did you have any additional requirements on manned traffic transiting through the airspace where you had your use-based system set up?
Okay, so I think it's 3 questions, if I get them correct. So of course we get the manned aviation traffic currently out of the DFS infrastructure. So whenever they have the traffic on their system, they will import these data into the UTM, and we enhance this information with let's say our technique. So even FLARM in low airspace where there's no coverage, whenever a drone is available, we can also display in that system. And of course, other drones using our services as well. And this will be combined as one combined view of traffic. So everything is combined in one view. And this, so whoever has access to this view and looking at authorities, for example, then they definitely have a complete overview of what's happening over their infrastructure currently as one. Or if you can also downsize that. If you, let's say, have an industrial area and you want to, let's say, ensure that no one is flying over your industrial area, even if it's forbidden for manned aviation. still in 1 or 2 projects where we have, let's say, set up our services within industrial areas. They were really astonished how many drones, or not drones, even manned aviation are flying over the area, even if it's not allowed. So this is also something what we can do, but it's a combination of everything. We can also, let's say, send these data of traffic to drone detection services and say, okay, these are the drones we know. And if they detect others, then these might be the ones who are not cooperative. So it's incorporated traffic maybe. So this is, everything is possible. But the most important thing is that it's only one view with all traffic, and this is important. And what coming to the other question, we don't have currently for the manned aviation any requirements, but we would like all aviation, even manned or unmanned, to be visible. So that we will have less accidents. Even if we fly low with helicopters and HEMS operations, for example, they are flying low. They have no view for drones because they have to, let's say, maybe land on a freeway to get some injured people up. They don't have the possibility to check. And we would also, let's say, make their operations more safe. And even if everyone is visible, and we don't have to talk about much cost here, but if you use FLAM or maybe other technologies, we don't want to invest anything new. We want to, let's say, use existing technology. And I think this might be possible. So currently we have no, let's say, demand for the manned aviation, but we would like them to be visible. That means that everyone who flies, even in low airspace, I know the transponder is not the right thing. There are, of course, normal S transponders who don't need integration to send the position because they do that automatically. So this would be good. And if everyone puts their transponder on, or everything they have in their aircraft, which makes traffic visible, I think that really helps. And then, of course, we can ensure more safety. And concerning the U-Space in Hamburg, we decided to use, or actually we are now in the let's say, definition of kind of airspace we are using, because since we have no airspace U already, so we have to use existing possibilities. And there we're looking at special activity areas, for example, that we currently use for aerobatic flights, for example, or which we think is more interesting is we're using restricted areas currently, because you can decide, you can say what you have to do to get or to fly into this area. And this is something what we currently try to establish in Hamburg in a very low, let's say, airspace. I think it's not much than more than 150 meters. So we don't interfere with manned aviation that much. But of course, with HEMS operations and helicopters flying pretty low, they might interfere, and we have to get communication up and running with these operators to ensure that all drones are on the ground or away out of the way from the helicopter services. This is something we have to ensure. But in future, it has to be different. It cannot be just 150 meters. It has to be at different altitudes. And Franziska also said the airspace is free. That's true. But we also realize in Hamburg already, ground and infrastructure also thinks they have a right to play. So it's not allowed to fly over everything, if you like. Now we also have to decide at which altitude, let's say, the right of the landowner disappears, or let's say the aviation has then the right to fly over it. This is also something we have to define, because this is currently not really clear. Once we fly over open land, it is clear, because then you can fly. But once you fly over populated areas, maybe even in the harbor area where there is some I don't know, critical infrastructure, it's difficult. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Thank you. I guess it answers a lot of questions indeed. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to get back to you for more questions. I see that we have some in the chat. Petri, maybe coming back to you, you mentioned that Finland was experiencing Arctic weather sometimes, and is that something that that required you to develop specific services, think about specific provisions for the operations of drones? Is that something that that needs to be really taken account of in the context of your projects?
Well, there are things, but they are not connected to U-Space or UTM. They are more on the flight and the durability of the drones. So icing issues we have at VTT, wind tunnels and icing tunnels to test how the blades, for example, ice. That's one of the concerns. The other of course is the current reliance on battery power. So that's really critical when we get below 0 temperatures. The battery life tends to get much shorter and restricted. So for that particular reason, we have this hydrogen fuel cell research work package in Rollo project. So we want to look into it quite closely what the feasibility of such systems are, because they are not sensitive to cold weather in such a level. But of course, we would need to solve the liquid hydrogen production and logistics issues first. So that's a different sector that's working on those. It might be some years before we have that, but again, UAV might be the first adopter of such technologies, maybe on lesser quantity than on road traffic or other aviation. So those kinds of things, not use-based related as such.
Petri, may I enhance a little bit? I think
Please.
Also the operations manuals of drones, you also have to take in consideration, because for one major manufacturer, they say below 0, you're not allowed to operate that drone. And I think this is also something you have to take in consideration.
Yes, indeed. Maybe before we rotate amongst the panelists, Petri, one more question. You mentioned, I think, in one of your slides that the project would involve over 10 cities and regions. Could you tell us a bit more about how easy it is to recruit cities and regions, and how spontaneous they are about UAM applications? And do you see differences in societal acceptance and approaches between them?
Yes, city recruitment. Yes, in EMO project we have provisioned for 10 or even more replicator cities or replicator regions. However, it's set up in each country that we approach. So we have so far not even actively started to recruit yet, but we already have several interested candidates, and in fact we have 2 confirmed cases as well, namely Stockholm and Dubai. But for the rest, we will start active recruitment after the European holiday seasons. In fact, so for that, heads up, keep a lookout for airmo.eu. That's our website. That's one of the places where the recruitment will be announced and can be reacted to. But we will be open to all. But still we need to be somewhat selective in the process. But first of all, we want to achieve as representative coverage as possible to be able to test several approaches in the mentioned differences of cities. You know, the aspirations, expectations, governance systems, and those kinds of things. And secondly, the recruited cities do not have to be really advanced in implementing UAV and U-Space, or in fact, varying levels of advancement might be very good for our impact to see where different cities are. But they do need to have a genuine interest in moving forward and learning in these issues. And they also need to be able to commit some resources to, not too much, but some, to be able to really work with us. And the foreseeing cooperation will include having an impact to all of our main outputs in their intermediate stages, namely the UAM guidebook, the UAM GIS planning tool, and the UAM training program. What content is needed in these, and what can be acquired from elsewhere, and that kind of conversation. And so societal acceptance, those kinds of issues, I guess we really start finding out when we start talking to these cities. Does that answer your question, Nicola?
Yes. Thank you very much. Maybe you mentioned the guidance, the handbook. So I guess this is going to be public information if it's part of a European funded project. What is the timeline there in terms of availability?
Well, the final version of the guidebook, yes, it's a public deliverable, so it will be fully available at the end of the project. But there will be an interim version of the. I have to say that I am not quite sure about the project month that it's coming out now, but there will be an interim version when we start working with it, for example, with the cities. The final one during 2023.
Okay, thank you. So, Francisca, maybe one question for you coming from the Q&A here. A question about airspace and routes. So, are UAM routes classified as in appliance to the airspace they are englobed with? So, I guess it's about how the UAM routes would be integrated in the current airspace above the cities. I don't know whether you can actually comment on this.
Of course, this is quite a challenge, especially in Hamburg, since we have two airports, the local airport located at the northern part of the city, and the Airbus, another airport at the Airbus side in the southern part of the cities, and we have crossing runways, and therefore we have nearly the whole city is controlled airspace. And of course, we have so this controlled airspace, and we have a lot of helicopter traffic, and so this is really something that needs to be taken into account when establishing drone traffic, because we need the right the right avoidance systems. So how do they communicate with each other? And I think U-Space offers opportunities to have more than just situational solutions, but to have a bigger view and to include all of the different objects flying there above our heads. Nicola, you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, you mentioned indeed during the preparation of this webinar that you had a lot of helicopter flights in Hamburg. Do you see that being integrated gradually in UAM? And how do you see that being managed with the development of UAM, new types of UAM operations?
I think this is something very technical that will be done step by step. I don't know the right solution for that yet.
Mm-hmm. And maybe one last question before I move on. We have here a question about harmonization. So you mentioned you were talking with other cities in the frame of UIC2. So how do you see a harmonized implementation of UAM? Do you expect a regulatory framework to be developed? Do you consider that collaborating within the within that UIC2 initiative is going to give and deliver the suitable guidelines? How do you see that evolving, and what do you see as need for harmonized development there?
I think, of course, cities will be different, and we'll have some different paths even in the future. But I think we have these task forces within our network to where we have different topics like social acceptance or regulation, and how to implement it and what kind of mechanism is needed to do that. I think on a very high level, we should have a common understanding on how to do it, how to understand how to implement urban air mobility, though there will be many problems or many special questions left to the city or regional level.
Thank you, Francisca. Maybe one last question to Jan-Erik. Is dronic charging system related to the risk of operations or UAS class, or is there a fixed fee? So basically, how is the charging, how is the cost recovery organized for UTM systems, for UTM services in the context of dronic services?
That's a very good question, and I don't have an answer for that now. I can also tell you why, because we don't know what the SIS service will cost at the end. So we are receiving services from, let's say, from DFS for any other countries, maybe from other service providers providing this common information function or even that service. I don't know if that's for free. If let's say every USSP is able to access that information for free, then of course the charge could be pretty low. But since we don't know what that model will be in the end, I don't have a pricing scheme currently. The only thing I can say, it's not only about use-based, and this is also something I would like to say. Lots of drone traffic is now currently done out of use-based because drones are flying currently anywhere. Maybe not in control zones, but they are flying more or less anywhere already. So we also need some services outside use-based also to ensure air safety, and this is also something we have to consider. So once you use our service, no matter if it's use-based or not, you can still fly outside use-based. You can also fly with our service in use-based, and then we have to decide if there's a special charge if you fly, let's say, within use-based. Yeah, and I don't know, and to be honest, even if we start now in Hamburg, how many USSPs in the end will be, let's say, in Hamburg operate, or let's say offering their services, and how many operators are even there. So this is something we really have to see once the first use case maybe, let's say, in place in 2023, and yeah, how many operators, and of course how many other use-based service providers will be there offering services. So this is not really clear, Nicolas. So this is not that I don't want to say it, it's definitely not clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, very frank answer. And I guess indeed this is a developing subject, and as we transition from research and development and demonstration projects to real implementation, this is going to something which is going to mature and become a bit more concrete. So thank you very much, all of you, for your presentations. I think there are still a few questions that may not be answered, but we are now getting closer to the end of this third webinar. So we had very interesting presentations on the projects related to U-Space and US operations and UAM in Finland. We had a very interesting case of the city-state of Hamburg developing their UAM projects as well, and presentations from Dronic developing their use-based services, and Germany and abroad. I think you are looking forward to competing on the global market for use-based service provision. A lot of interesting questions in the chat, a lot of interest, and I think this shows the need to continue with this initiative and the interest of this use-based network of demonstrators. We do not hesitate, as indicated in the chat, do not hesitate to get in touch with the panelists by email. I think you have all provided your email contact details in your presentations. So if you had a question that you didn't ask today, or that wasn't answered today, feel free to reach out to those presenters today. And I guess that the recording of today will be made available later as well. So I wish you all a very pleasant summer break, and I'm looking forward to meeting you after the summer break. I'm sure that this network of use-based demonstrators will continue with more webinars and meetings. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity of organizing face-to-face meetings and workshops in the coming month as lives resumes and returns to a sense of normality, and we will of course focus more on implementation of use-based as we get closer to the applicability date of the regulation, and that as projects deliver more mature results. So thank you very much all, and looking forward to speaking to you soon after the summer. Thank you.